Don. I have known Don for many, many years now. He is in HR and he's seasoned. He understands what it takes to work at the ground level to executive level, public, private sector. And so I'm not going to say too much about his background because I might ruin it and not say everything. So Don, thank you for coming on. And could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, first of all, to get you acclimated to my dialect, I'm from the South, so you will notice that drawl. Many of you who are not familiar with the South, I just wanted to make sure it didn't catch you off guard there. I have over 30 years of experience in the arena of human resources and the military. I started off in personnel in military. I served as a U.S. Army recruiter. I commanded Army recruiters. I've spent well over 7 years of working in human resources with the financial services industry, specifically with the Principal Financial Group, MetLife, marketing and selling their employee benefits programs to small and medium-sized businesses. I have worked with the Eckert Corporation. Many years ago, it was probably the largest drugstore chain in the South or on the East Coast, managing their recruitment function for their foundation at the Eckert Corporation. And of course, that was nonprofit work. Since 2002, I have been working for the U.S. government in the federal sector, serving as a recruiting manager, employment manager, or branch chief. Moved up to be a human resources officer. I have served as the acting deputy chief human capital officer for the Department of Agriculture. I've also served as the deputy chief human capital officer for the U.S. Small Business Administration. And currently I serve as the human resources director for the Federal Transit Administration of the U.S. Department of Transportation. And I am pleased to announce that at the end of this year, I will be retiring. My work has come to an end. I am at the end of my career. So hopefully the information that I share with you today will be my looking back on my career and not only sharing with you the positives, but also sharing with you lessons learned from mistakes made. So I'm looking forward to any questions you may have and have as much opportunity to just explain and to share those things as it relates to career choices, career development.
Well, thank you for that, and it's an opportune time because you're coming at the end of your career, and I have Namonje on the other side at the beginning of her career. So this works perfectly. So before we're getting deep into this, Don, let me just allow Namonje to introduce herself. That way, as we're talking, you can kind of understand where she's coming from, and she can learn from where you've been. So Namonje, without further ado, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. This is such an honor to be on the Anakazi platform. All the women that are on Anakazi are women that I looked up to. And I remember about 6 years ago, I would send emails and I would say, I would like to volunteer. And I would like to say, I would like to be the editor for the magazine and ABCD. So being here is really, really such an honor. I was actually just noting that unlike Donald, I'm a newbie in the human resource field. I've been working for a complete 6 years in different departments. I worked for Samsung and I worked in the human resource department, but I was an intern at the time. And while I was a student, I took up a lot of jobs just to, make ends meet. But it became such a hobby. It became something that I really enjoyed. And not to mention, I was a high achiever. I thought to myself, there must be more students like me who just want to earn some money. And it would be nice to create a platform where students can sign up and, they can make a little extra. And over time, they can learn something, because a lot of companies want to, hire students that have a little bit of experience. It's very difficult to enter the market in Zambia if you do not have experience. Every job advert probably has 2 years experience, 1 year experience. But when you're just graduating from school, all you have is probably your 3 months internship. And so I created Hire a Student. I partnered with someone, and last year we got selected to represent Zambia in the US on the Young African Leaders Initiative program. And that is where I got a lot of mentorship, and we've been refining the program. So I'm very happy to learn more and also share from what I have learned.
Thank you so much, Namonje. So, Don, you heard Namonje's side, she's incoming HR side,
Yes.
and you've been there, done that, and you're getting ready to exit. I'm sure you'll be back in the workforce, because I know lots of people that retire and come back. So, if you're looking for a job, holla at your girl. We'll have something by the time you decide to come back into the workforce. But one of the questions I wanted to get right off the bat, so that we kind of shape this conversation, is, from your experience, what is the difference between working in HR on the public side versus the private side, the private sector?
Well, first of all, human resources on the private sector side, its focus is to support the organization and its management to ensure that they're capitalizing on all aspects of its workforce. For the purpose, the bottom line is profit. And to ensure that human capital is managed in a way to enhance profitability. That's number one. On the in the public sector, or whether it's federal, state, or county, in any government agency, there is a greater focus on service.
Gotcha.
And the service that we deliver to the public. And there is this sense of stewardship, if you will, related to public sector work. Typically, salaries are less in the public sector for the work we perform. That's comparable work in the private sector. That's certainly the case. Employees have more rights, if you will, in the public sector than they do in the private sector. And there is a sense of ownership, and it's always been that way. And it's that way in Canada and other countries. You see this in Europe as well. So I think that the biggest difference is when you go into a profession, whether it is human resources, engineering, administration, management, regardless of the area, research, in any of the STEM fields. In the public sector, your motivation is service to the public and giving back.
Correct.
It is not necessarily the greatest amount of money you can make, and I think that that's where I see a great difference. I must say that if you are successful and you're pretty strategic about your knowledge of human resources in the private sector, you're certainly going to make a heck of a lot more money. I can assure you of that. So that's what I would describe as the key difference between the two.
Okay. So Namonje, given what Don has just said, do you foresee yourself staying more in the private or transitioning staying more in public or transitioning into private as an HR profession at some point in your life?
At the moment, I believe that entering the public sector in our country is, I don't want to say corrupt, but it's a little bit complicated.
Okay. Okay.
The process of it is extremely, it's disappointingly slow, and it's not very progressive as compared to the private sector. Private sector human resource, and from my experience dealing with students, it's straight to the point, it's straightforward. They're looking for skilled people, and even if they're not looking for skilled people and they're looking for non-skilled people, they're very specific. When it comes to the public sector, in Zambia, and I would like to say that it's more about who can connect you to the job and that type of thing. There's a lot of people in the public sector who really deserve the positions that they have, but there's also a lot of people that got there in very, dubious ways. The system is not as great and as refined as it is in the US. So I would say the private sector looks more promising, and even for the students, it really does look more promising than the public sector. However, as a platform that is not necessarily focused on just linking students to jobs, what we're trying to do is build a mindset in a first-year student to know that they're part of an organization as a brick in the stone. We're trying to build that entrepreneur attitude about them, that it doesn't matter where they work, whether it's the private sector or the public sector, because by the time they get to their fourth year and by the time they get a job, our training programs would like them to feel like they're adding something to the companies that they are, because any company is looking at, economic growth. Any company is looking at what kind of money am I putting into this resource and what is their output. And so we want to build that attitude in them. So we're not necessarily, segregating what the goals of the student should be, whether it's private or public. But it is not as easy to get into the public sector as it is in other countries. It's not a flawless process that is based on merit.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think Don will probably back me up on this, that majority of the time in the workforce, 95% of the times that people get jobs, it's through somebody they know or somebody who knows somebody in that aspect. I don't know whether that was the same for you, Don, when you were coming up in the workforce, or did that change over time, or has it stayed the same throughout different generations?
Well, even in the public sector, it does help to have connections within the government. It really does, to help open the door for you in the same manner as it is in the private sector, to be honest with you, or the nonprofit sector. I think here in America, let me just say in the US, because there are federal laws that dictate the process of hiring and applying for and being selected for a position in the federal sector, unlike I must say, unlike some other countries, there is a certain level of basic fairness where selections are made based on merit. And so that is good. Now, one of the things that an option here in the United States, if you are a military veteran, you do legally get advantage over individuals who are non-veterans.
And rightly so.
And yes, absolutely. So that is the one advantage. I remember my entering into the federal sector. The reality is it was in fact my years of service in the Army that gave me the foot up to actually get into government to perform the work of human resources rather than the actual HR experience I had in the private and nonprofit sector.
Wow, that's great. So I have a question for Don or Namonje, either one. So well, Don, I can appreciate your accent because I'm originally from Oklahoma City. So it's not as thick as yours, but when I heard you, I was like, oh, I felt at home almost. So I can recognize that. And we're both military brats as well. I was in the United States Navy, and you were in the Army, so that's great. My question was in regards to COVID and how it has changed the workforce. Have you guys run across any difficulties in regards to policies that have already been in place from an HR perspective in regards to like employees or job placements because of COVID? Like if employees are to now go into work and there are certain restrictions that are put in place for safety purposes, do you find that because of any challenges with the prior policies that you have now that you have COVID, do you come up with new policies? Like, have you seen anything challenging in regards to that?
I think the level of opportunity for telework, telecommuting, COVID-19 environment has forced all employers where the services that they deliver are primarily service-driven, knowledge-based, where there was reluctance. And to be quite honest with you, when telework became, I would just describe it as really popular, and from like 2005 to 2010, when it was becoming the norm, obviously as the capabilities via the internet grew, there organizations, businesses were looking at, okay, how best to do this, and the question of face-to-face meetings always were of greater value than meeting over a phone. And when broadband became much more effective and broadband speeds increased, organizations like Cisco and WebEx and all of those began to offer video conferencing. Organizations even became more receptive to affording employees the opportunity to telework. And we actually have seen, and from research from the private sector, just prior to the COVID-19 environment, we were beginning to see a decline in actual telework opportunities and an embracing of telework. You actually had some of the West Coast corporations beginning to question the true value of telework and what was being missing from actual face-to-face engagement between employees, determining, hey, is there value in the workplace being lost as a result of that? And so that discussion was beginning to really evolve. And I personally, I think the commercial real estate industry had a lot to do with that. As more people telework, it decreased the footprint of employees in the sense of space that was required. So they were really pushing for employees to actually return to the actual workplace. But since we've been in the COVID environment, and it has required everybody to telework, even the people who did not like teleworking. And in the government, we have a lot of senior managers that I just call it old school. And
Yes.
that they just got to see you face to face.
Right.
I don't trust if I can't put my hands on an employee in a cubicle.
Right.
How do I know if they're really working and not sitting around watching soap opera?
Right. That's very true. That was going to be my next question, was that, we lose that connectivity. So you have some senior people who will say that. So how are we transitioning to get them to see during that time that
COVID-19 has done for the promotion of telework than any other effort that we've made to promote telework. And I will say that now that everybody's been required to be in a telework environment, what we've seen is actual productivity increased. If you're living in major metropolitan areas where commuting, it can be, I know in the DC, New York, LA areas, Seattle areas, San Francisco, employees can spend 2 hours going into work, 2 hours coming back from work.
Oh, I know from experience. I used to drive 2.5 hours one way.
Yes. And so now that employees don't spend that time, I'll give you an example. I would get up by 4:30, quarter to 5 in the morning, so that I would be able to be in work by 7:30. Now that I can telework, I can rest longer, take my time, have me a nice breakfast that's very economical.
Yes, indeed.
At home, and then come in and sit down. Studies have shown the stress of commuting. There's a substantial amount of stress on employees that ultimately reduce worker productivity. And so with that stress being relieved, now we have seen a serious uptick in productivity. So those same managers and executives who just had to have everybody in the meeting. I as a senior manager, our administrator was one of those who, okay, if you're a senior manager, you're talking about teleworking. When I have a meeting, you need to be here. You need to be here for my meeting.
That's very real. That's very true.
And now that the administrator has to telework like everybody else, and we're now seeing what how we can actually engage effectively via MS Teams. In most corporate environments, they're utilizing Microsoft Teams. Very much the same services that can be rendered through Zoom or WebEx, but MS Team is the product in the federal sector. Everybody's in agreement that, you know what, when this is all over, there will be more teleworking, and there will be more appreciation for telework, because it has proven that not only are employees productive, they are in fact more productive.
Correct.
Because they're not dealing with the stress of commuting. So that's what I would say.
So
well said.
So let me just go back to Namonje real quick. Namonje, listening to what Don is saying about telecommuting, and perhaps this is where we might transition going forward. How do you foresee your generation? First of all, let me back up. What is your generation doing currently in this environment in terms of employment?
Okay. I've seen an opportunity in the midst of a storm. The COVID-19 has caused a lot of people to lose their jobs, and there's a lot of companies that use this opportunity to downsize on some of their staff, and offering that temp job and non-permanent base for companies and firms to hire from. There's been an opportunity for more younger people to get employed, which is what has happened for us as higher students. And on the other hand, our country has actually flexed some of the labor laws. This was actually implemented, I think, about 3 months ago.
Okay.
The employees that are now getting employed on a contract basis are not necessarily entitled to terminal benefits. Your contract can be terminated at any time, and
Without cause?
also without cause, and also with cause, because a company could come up and say, we can't afford to keep this
Gotcha.
person, we can't afford to keep this employee. I'll give you an example. The Zambian mines, Mopani mine, has been going back and forth with the government about reducing on their workforce, because they say that the price of the copper is not as high as it used to be,
Yes.
but they had employed so many people over time. So they've been trying to cut down on their workforce for a very, very long time. And now that the COVID-19 is here, it happened so quickly in a very short space of time that people were handed out termination letters. And most of these people are people who have worked for longer years. There are people who have worked for long years, but also, from the HR department, there's the FIFO and the LIFO, where you look at how long a person has worked, and you might want to keep the people that you employed sooner because you don't have to pay higher benefits. So it's a bit of a scale that's tipping back and forth, because there's an opportunity for younger people to now have an opportunity to work in firms on a temporary basis, on a contract basis, earn a bit of money, gain a bit of experience. And I foresee that when all this is over, hopefully soon, there'll be more younger people getting permanently employed as compared to like the older generation.
Are we seeing more in office or telecommuting? How's the employment sector working right now?
Definitely more telework. It's been very, very difficult to implement, especially, like the mindset is always, I want to meet you face to face to have a meeting. And even for us, connecting with the students, we completely digitalized our platform, and we saw the numbers drop. For a minute, we were a bit scared, and we thought, people are not necessarily going to respond to this. And we started trying to find ways of engaging students, engaging young people. How do we go on social media and create, a live video, where two people can connect and they can have a meeting in their private inbox? It was a very slow response, but now more people are meeting. On the other hand, there's also, the Zambian economy is a little bit different from the US. We have power surges. We have power surges every single time. And now that the COVID-19 is here, that power surge has actually increased over time. So you find there's a group of employees who are supposed to be at work. You're supposed to have an online meeting. And there's all these excuses to not just work and be productive, and because most companies are on a cycle where they're asking employees to come on different days. For example, you work on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Fridays you're in office, and the next 3 days you're doing telework. I think that a lot of people have experienced a slump in productivity with that regard. Yes, because
so
if I'm working from home
in Zambia versus the US, okay,
exactly, because if I'm working from home and I can call in right now and say, we've had no power for the last 12 hours.
Gotcha.
And,
So,
my gadgets were not charged, so I'm not able to send a report. So more companies are still requiring their workforce to go back to the office, where they have the facility to work and be productive, as opposed to be at home.
Understood. So,
yes.
Don, in the middle of all this, you're hearing Namonje aspiring to be where you are someday. If you were to go back in time and there was a pandemic in that space of time, what kind of skills do you hope you would have gained or tried to get so that they can transform in the pandemic?
In the professional arena, I would certainly encourage all young people. I know the requirement for writing, essay writing, technical writing, research writing. There's not a, you can graduate from undergraduate studies and have very, very limited writing skills.
Okay.
Unfortunately, multiple choice type testing in assessment at the end of a course has become the norm. And so a lot of times, a lot of our young people, we're noticing that they are very limited in writing skills. Matter of fact, in most corporations, if you're going to, and even in the private sector, if you're coming into a professional position, they're requiring a writing essay. And a writing essay that you actually do online in real time, or you come into the office to complete in real time to make sure it is in fact your writing. That would be the one thing that I would say, and I would have spent more. I would have afforded myself opportunities to further develop what we refer to as technical writing.
Okay.
I certainly would. Additionally, basic computer, I won't call it computer programming, but rather understanding web-based technology, understanding of the basics of HTML. When we talk about the basic Microsoft suite of tools, I would master. If I was a young person right now, I would tell them, you know, you ought to be a master in Excel.
As opposed to YouTube, I agree.
A master at Excel. Really know how to put together and develop powerful, very effective PowerPoint tools. Adobe suite with their development of online learning and how to construct online learning. I would invest. I would personally spend more money on that than I would actually getting a degree. I know that sounds strange, but I'm telling you that those are the skills that are not only now, but as you continue to maintain those skills, stay on the cutting edge of technology and the utilizations of those types of systems now and in the future will determine your sustainability in the workforce. And I'm telling you, if there was anything, if I could go back, that's what I would do.
What you would do.
I absolutely love that you have mentioned that, because I like to tell students that school is not the classroom, and you can gain a lot of knowledge and information from different platforms. And right now, the internet is filled with free online courses in different things, and you don't necessarily have to wait until you're done with your graduate degree for you to gain certain skills. My own story is that I have so many online courses in different things that I wanted to know about, online courses in IT, online course in networking and different things. So I absolutely love that you have mentioned that you would pick up a lot of different skills. And in trying to help our students gain more and more skills, we actually developed a program called Salamano, which means choose knowledge. Now, this actually supplements what the classrooms are not giving to students. The classrooms are giving them the basics, the skills, the specialization, and everything that they need. But then there's every single time that we have taken students to different firms, the request and, the comments that we get is, can these people do reports? Do they know how to use Excel? And those are skills that most schools won't actually offer you. They will give you the basics in biology. This is the book. And a lot of students are not studying for knowledge. They're only studying to pass their exam so that they are eligible to get a job. But we're sitting down with these students and looking at their personal development. How can you assess a problem? can you sit down and make a decision about A, B, and C if it was put to you on the table? If the boss was not in the office and you're in charge of accounts and the phone is ringing, what is your mindset towards, just getting work done? So we're really encouraging a wide range of skills outside of the school curriculum. And I absolutely love that you touched on that.
So now, go ahead, Don. Sorry.
I was going to say, to reiterate the point you're making, your ability, an employee's ability to analyze information, to actually conduct research. Oftentimes, a lot of research is done is accomplished via the internet. Are you able to discern between fact and fiction? What information out there is credible and not credible? How do you source information? I tell you, the most important class I ever took in college was a course, Library and Information Sciences. It's a course about how to conduct research. And it is one thing that I have been able to apply all during my career. And again, those writing skills, those research skills, fact-finding abilities, the ability to analyze information, it is absolutely essential. And you need to acquire those skills young. And you mentioned a while ago about they're not gaining the information in school for knowledge, but actually to ensure that they pass a test. When in fact, you need to be able to understand, how do I apply this knowledge in various day-to-day situations? If you can't apply the knowledge, then the knowledge does you no good. And I would certainly tell students, as they're learning new theories, concepts, regardless of the course, you need to ask yourself, what is the practical application of this knowledge, this information? And again, I would also say that because most of our learning today will be via the internet. I tell people, I don't care what the subject is, even in government. If I really want to know the answer to the question real quick, I Google it.
Yeah.
And the information resource that they referred to it when it first was developed, the internet, they said it, information superhighway. And just as important as any utility, whether it's water, electricity, gas for heating, I'm telling you that broadband, you have to ensure that you are investing in broadband, whether it's 5G with your phone, that's great. 5G with an Android, a tablet, or whatever, that's great. But you need to have constant connection via broadband, so that all the information out there, all the learning, and I'm glad you mentioned that there is so much learning, and YouTube is just absolutely the new library of the 21st century. And so people love to share the knowledge that they have, and they do it for free. We need to make sure, and young people need to make sure that they're accessing it at all times. And the only way you can do that is to ensure that you have access to broadband all the time.
Very true. Now that you mention, we've been trying to get into partnership with a telecoms company to offer a student bundle that is a little bit cheaper, and students can access it in different places with a portable Wi-Fi router. And you'll be surprised, the universities have people coming from the most remote areas in the country. And there's times that they're just not able to access.
Go ahead, Namonje.
Yes, they're just not able to access information because they don't have the basics that they need to access even just the internet. So that is actually one of the things that is going into, developing the next generation. It's a world of a difference being in the US, because every place there's free Wi-Fi, there's guest Wi-Fi, there's guest Wi-Fi on the bus, there's guest Wi-Fi on the train. It's a world of a difference. And these are things that are only starting to develop now in Africa, in Zambia. South Africa is a little bit different because it's a little closer to the US. But in Zambia, these are things that we're actually pushing to. So there's devices that you can use, and we're just trying to convince people as one small company that you should invest in the students, because these are the future warriors of the economy. So help us with a student bundle, help them access information, help them learn more, and they will actually give more to the companies and to the economy at the end of the day.
So as we end our session, Namonje and Don, I have two questions. Namonje, if you had all the resources in the world in this pandemic right now, all the money you need, all the availability of assistance, whether it's from the private sector or the public sector or the faith-based people, organizations, what would you want to see happen to help people get out of this pandemic?
Wow, that is a great thought. I mean, getting out of this pandemic is all about really just taking responsibility individually. When I look on the perspective of students and people that are developing, I would love more than anything to invest in innovation hubs, innovation and technology hubs. That is what I would invest in first of all. And obviously going by the COVID guidelines. You look at countries like Japan and China. Those are countries that have developed based on, technological progress. They have so many hubs, so many competitions to this day for students to just innovate on products, on simple things like farming, education. How are we going to put things back into the economy? I would love more than anything to invest in different innovation and technology hubs.
Sounds great. I wish I could make that happen, but I'm hoping our next guest can help us get there, but we'll figure it out when we talk to him. But I wanted to turn back to Don real quick so that you can get an idea, Namonje, as we exit. Don, one of the things I've noticed about the upcoming generation is a sense of entitlement.
Oh yeah.
And we probably understand nobody owes you anything. You have to work for it and go out there and do not necessarily do what you have to do, but legally work for it and network and get to know people. What advice can you give for this generation, knowing we're in a pandemic, they have technology, you've told them that they probably need to invest in a lot of vocational skills, the computers, learning, Microsoft Word and things of that nature. In addition to all of that, what long-lasting advice can you offer them that they can start to use now so that when we transition out of this, whenever that will be, it can carry them even further?
Okay, if you are currently unemployed or currently underemployed, if you will, it's important for you to figure out how can I apply the skill sets that I have today in this environment. I want to make sure that everybody know you've got to. There's a concept when it comes to skill sets. Either you use them or you lose them.
Correct.
And if you're in a position right now, if you're underemployed or you're not working in the field that you really desire and you have all the professional training in, you need to figure out how to maintain your skill sets. And I need you to understand that at this time, it's important to apply those skills in a voluntary basis. working with community organizations, working and assisting associations, working on projects with consultants. Just say, hey, I'll do this almost like an intern so that I can apply and further develop my skill sets. You'd be surprised how often people say, okay, hey, that's free labor. But given the opportunity to observe you and see how you apply that knowledge you have, to see how you are applying the skill sets that you have, anytime you have exposure and opportunity to display your skill sets, it's an opportunity for someone to see you as a potential employee. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Obviously, in this environment now, everything is via telecommuting, teleworking, video conferencing. If you're able to, make sure you invest in the best quality of HD cameras. Make sure you have a good high-speed computer, a desktop. If it's a Mac tablet or Android tablet, make sure it's of the highest quality and you have broadband access so that even in this environment, you're able to apply those skill sets.
Well, Namonje, did you hear that? Because
yes,
I'm going to be relying on you. Well, Namonje, and Don, I thank you so much. Don, as always, I appreciate your support and your friendship. Namonje, I look forward to seeing many more great things, and I'm hoping that if we can work something out with the NAACP, we can bring a whole bunch of youth down there someday. I don't know when, but it's been a pleasure having both of you on here, and let's stay in touch, and thank you so much. Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add on?
I just wanted to say thank you to Don and Namonje. It was very informative. I learned a lot, even for myself. You know, I'm affected by this COVID-19 pandemic, unemployed, looking for work since March and been rejected probably 100 times. But this was just very encouraging on what I can do myself to make sure that I can, you know, make myself valuable and on the front lines to become employed again. And Namonje, thank you so much for coming online, sharing your story, your experience as well. I appreciate the both of you. Thank you very much.
Don.
Okay.